Hi everyone and welcome. Today we will be talking about mastering modern recruitment tactics for success. Thanking APNA for having me today at their virtual conference. I'm really excited to be here and to share with you all. So thanks again for tuning in today and to learn more about today's topic. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sianan and I'm from Placement Solutions Down Under. We're celebrating our 36th year in business this year, specialising in nanny placement and domestic staffing and recruitment. We are a labour hire company offering temp and permanent employment for candidates. I have been working at Placement Solutions officially for about 15 years, but unofficially my whole life. Our CEO, Louise, is my mother, so this is our family business now and something that I have the privilege of being a part of and helping grow. I have worked in all areas of our business and still do, so from client placements, in the recruitment team, marketing, business development, and management. I also have a legal background as a qualified lawyer, so every now and again I also enjoy using my diplomacy skills and managing some of those trickier aspects that we as agency owners face. So if you haven't figured it out already and you're wondering why I sound the way that I do, I'm coming to you from down under. So there is a little map for you, and that arrow shows you where I am, right down the bottom of Australia in Melbourne. On that note, before I do go any further, I also wanted to acknowledge the land on which I am presenting from today and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which I stand. And for me today, that is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So originally, APNA asked me to talk today as they had heard myself and some of my colleagues speak about a book that we had taken interest in last year, and we have adopted some strategies and concepts from that book for within our agency's recruitment practices. That book there on the screen is called Recruit the Savage Way by Greg Savage. A lot of what I speak about today will be based on some of his theories and recommendations. I would, of course, and I do recommend the book to you, but I have also picked out kind of the best bits and we'll be discussing them with you today. So another recommendation I have is for Greg's other book called The Savage Truth, which talks a little bit more about his story personally as a recruitment agency owner. And I think that's a great read for any business owner. I have myself met Greg before in person, and let me tell you, he does live up to his name. He is a total savage. He is cutthroat in his approach. He is strict about what he thinks you should do as a recruiter to get the best outcomes. I guess I have softened it a little bit today and I've made it less savage. And mainly that's because I know that within our industry particularly, we are a bunch of very compassionate people, and many of us can find it really, or can find it difficult to assert our businesses and our policies in a really aggressive way, similar to how he talks in the book. So I am presenting you some of Greg's techniques today in how to recruit like a savage in a softer way, but still to help you assert and strengthen your position in your market and help you be more confident in your decision-making and your recruitment mindset. Now, whether you are a one-person agency and run your own show or whether you have a team, I think a lot of what I discussed today is applicable for all of us. So on the agenda today, we will be talking about your imaginary skills briefcase, recruiter equity and credibility, the use of tentative language in our scripts, positive mindset and tracking our recruiter equity, candidate commitment and behaviours, candidate care, building trust for your brand, and job triaging. So in general, we're going to be talking about having success in recruitment and practices that will work to improve your ability to have better human influencing skills, which will in turn strengthen your ability to build credibility in your brand and your position as a recruiter. So your imaginary skills briefcase. One of the main themes that I took from Greg's book was the importance of adaptability. And I think that that's something that we have all really embraced in the last few years since the changes that were kind of forced on us by COVID, but that we now recognize have left lasting change. So I think we talk about this a lot, and I've heard this at lots of APNA conferences and sessions over the years. We are living in a world where things are changing really rapidly, and in both business in general, but also our recruitment industry, where we are people specific, we need to be able to adapt and be open and willing to change with the times. So we need to seek improvement and accept that there might be a better way, no matter how long you have been doing it one particular way. So a major example obviously includes technology. Greg talks about it being total sabotage to not be open-minded to doing things in new ways. So one exercise that he talks about, but I have kind of adapted today, is a good exercise to do to kind of self-evaluate yourself in terms of where you're at in being able to assess how adaptable you are. So I want you to think about what is currently in your imaginary briefcase of skills, what capabilities and competencies do you have, what particular knowledge do you have that makes you the expert in your field, what particular relationships or networks do you have, what extra skills would you like to have in that suitcase 12 months from now. Also have a think about what is in your skills briefcase that previously wasn't there 12 months ago, or wasn't there when you started your business, or wasn't there prior to COVID, for example. As I said, this is a really good way of evaluating how adaptable you are and how open to change you are. So no matter what part of the business you work in within your agency, and we're all doing the same thing, it's recruitment. So the aim of the game is to successfully match clients and candidates. The first part of building your equity as a recruiter and your credibility as a recruiter or as a brand is self-belief in your own brand and your position as the expert. This might sound pretty simple, but I don't just mean it in terms of believing in yourself and reach for the stars, you can do anything type of mantra. I mean it more in terms of being able to confidently assert yourself as the expert in your field. And the only way that you're going to be able to build that credibility is by being the expert in what you do and in your area. So for example, the client or family that you're working with on a placement that might be a CEO of a multinational or big corporation, and we've all had those, right? Those clients that think that they know more than we do just because we're a small business. Or what about a client that's a lawyer who thinks that they can come along and strike out all of the terms in our contract that they don't see relevant to them? We've all had those, and I know we have. I see them, I see things like that on the agency Facebook groups all the time. But what's really important to remember is that you need to remember the dynamic. Although they may be asserting their kind of power and position in that way, you need to remember who knows more about the recruitment market of nannies, you or them. Obviously, it's you, right? You are the expert. So allow that to kind of set the tone of all of your interactions with both clients and candidates. So one way to increase your position as the expert is to ensure that you are not only confident in your practices and your policies, but that the language you or your staff members are using is in line with you being able to confidently assert that. So our agency has worked for many years on the fact that we are selling trust to families. Another good book recommendation actually is The Trust Edge by David Horsiger. And I can maybe put that in the chat box as well for those interested. However, Greg's book has kind of helped us shift our mindset into the fact that we're also selling confidence. asserting our position in the market as people who will not only do what we say that we can do for both clients and candidates, but also who will get it done in the way that we tell them that it will be done. They want to know that we have the capacity to help them and that we will do it well. You want them not only feeling impressed, but confident. You want them feeling confident that they've chosen the right agency or the right person to work with them on this placement. And you want them to trust your advice and your expertise. So one way we reduce our credibility is by using tentative language. Tentative language creates and plants doubt in your clients and candidates, and it's a really good way to start off on the wrong foot when having a conversation with a potential client, for example. So one classic example, and I do see this on, again, the agency Facebook groups all the time, is when people are considering discounting for a particular client or reducing their normal fees in order to attract a certain client, or perhaps when you are low on clients and you need to make a placement. So I've used that example today as a way to talk about tentative language. So when discussing your fees with clients, any tentative wording implies to them that there is room for movement and that you don't know your value or believe in your value. So you lose credibility right away. And if you've lost credibility, you've then lost trust with the client and therefore reduced your business opportunity with them. So some examples of words that are tentative in a cost-related scenario when discussing pricing with clients is using words like normally. So when a client asks what your costs are and you say, well, normally it's this much, but I think I could do a deal for you. Although you might think that you're doing something to kind of better your chances in sealing the deal with them, all you're doing is letting them know that you're not confident in what you're selling and the value of what you do. Other tentative language to avoid, words like approximately, sometimes, our average price is, this is a ballpark, probably, and the old classic, let me check with my manager. So Greg uses a good example in the book. Would you trust a doctor who says, oh, we can try this, it sometimes works for the condition you have? Or a hairdresser who said that they can't promise you that it will be the right color? No, you probably wouldn't. So in that same regard, when speaking with clients, have pride in what you say. There is no shame in what we do, which is to get paid a fee in exchange for the delivery of a match. So a outcome or exercise is to go through your scripts and remove any tentative language and ensure that you're asserting confidence in each of your discussion points with a potential client. Specifics also impress. At the end of a conversation, go through and tell your client what you're going to do and then go and do it. So for example, we have implemented at the end of our family onboarding calls, reiterating our time frame for that client, which is also a good way of ensuring that they're on the same wavelength as you in terms of turnaround time, and that you're really setting the expectation there in what is possible. So we tell them, I'm going to, thanks for your time today. Thanks for giving me all of this information. I'm going to finalize your job description today. I'm going to post it on this jobs board. My recruiter will reach out to candidates tomorrow and the next day. It will go on our internal jobs list on Friday. However it works for you. This is just an example of what we may say to a client. And then we go and do that exactly. So we finish up the call. We leave time in our calendar to go and schedule and do all of those things in the format and way that we have told the client that we will be doing it. So when talking about tentative language, I have put in some examples as well regarding candidates. So classic example, using sentences like, hey, this is probably a job worth looking at for you. or this job has some of the things that you are looking for in a job. I know both of those statements they sound really casual and candid, and that's kind of the approach that many of us like to take with candidates to help influence them or suggest things with them. But again, those words kind of lead with doubt for the candidate. They want you to know that you're calling them or you're picking up the phone to tell them that you have the best job for them that suits all of their needs. And we will talk about that a little bit later as well. So a classic example is just to change that to, this is a great role with a great family and they are offering X, Y, and Z. So again, exercise, go through all. I really suggest doing this. Sit down with your team or by yourself and go through kind of common phrases and statements that you like to use, your go-to lines when selling to clients, and make sure that you are removing tentative language in order to assert confidence. So there are times that we all go home deflated in this industry, those days or weeks where literally every placement seems to fall through, and or every client and nanny present a challenge, or you just have mean clients all week long. No doubt this happens to all of us. Greg puts it in a really a great way in the book, in that he talks about recruiting as being uniquely challenging because it's the only job where what you are selling can turn around and say no. So for example, if I was selling you my car and then we agreed on a price, we negotiated a little and then we agreed and we decided to move forward, the car is not going to turn around and say, no, I don't want to go home with that person. But in recruitment, that's something that happens all the time. People change their mind. So recruitment is unique in that so much of the work that we do, we're not paid for. So working on a job where it falls through, we all know what it's like, screening candidates for a family, and then the family says they found a nanny through their neighbor's cousin's godmother's friend. Yeah. So one thing we can do to counteract this is to make sure that the work that we are doing counts. And that's something that really resonated for me. For example, in our business, we track all of our numbers in terms of our candidate recruitment. So that includes incoming applicants, applicants that then meet our pre-screen requirements, those that then convert to interview, and then induction with us, and so on. And then those who are obviously successfully placed in our temp division or in an ongoing placement. And that's tracked all the way through. However, with that tracking, we can obviously also measure the work that we are doing and the work that we don't get paid for. So candidates that we are screening that don't make the cut, candidates who don't have the commitment we need them to have. So one exercise I can suggest is going through your processes and ensuring that you're eliminating opportunities for you to do work that won't eventuate into revenue for you later on. So for example, and I've put some of these on the screen, are you attracting candidates who are wasting your time because they don't meet your agency's standards? Get rid of them. Make sure your eligibility criteria is clear and that you don't attract people who are trying to skirt around your minimums. Be really assertive in your minimum standards. Be clear in your job ads for families. Be really specific about the minimum requirements. This will help eliminate time wasters, although also just accepting that we will always have time wasters in this industry. Go through your processes and eliminate opportunities to recruit and onboard employees, and perhaps more so that's maybe more relevant for agencies doing temp or employing. Those candidates who ghost you, who are really unreliable, who do one job and then move on. So that actually brings me to my next slide, which is about candidate commitment. Now, these two phrases are things that you'll hear me talk about through today's presentation. Greg Savage refers to CTM and MTA. And what is that? I know you're looking at me and reading this and saying, what does that all mean? commitment to move, and motivation to accept. So you might attract someone to apply with your agency, and you might then meet with them, onboard them, successfully have them within your candidate network. That doesn't mean that they are committed to accepting a job with you. I don't mean having exclusivity with your agency. I mean more so their motivation as a candidate willing and ready to engage with you at all realistically in a job hunt. So I know some of us spend time complaining about candidate behaviors, and I know from talking with many of you that we share the same challenges. For example, ghosting, erratic decision-making by candidates, changing their minds after accepting a job. We can't necessarily change their behaviors, but we have the opportunity to adapt our behaviors towards them and implement practices on how we can best respond to them. So we have the opportunity to implement processes to ensure that we are capturing the right information we need, and again, setting the tone with the candidate in terms of encouraging them to be in a position that they are motivated to accept a position. Sure, candidates can lie. We all have those candidates who just tell you whatever you want to hear. But I guess what I'm saying is that this is also an opportunity for you to create a process to either encourage a candidate to be more engaged or reduce your likelihood of employing or engaging a candidate who is not engaged. So, some levels of candidate behavior. There are 4, and as you can see here at the top, that's the goal. These are the types of candidates that we want to be working with. So the first type of candidate you might have is what Greg refers to as flirting. So maybe toying with the idea of moving, a conceptual move at this stage, hypothetical. It might just be an idea for them. The next is a candidate that is considering. So a candidate is seriously planning a move. They are upgrading their resume. They're upgrading their LinkedIn profile. They're doing research. They might have a list of things that they want in a job. Next, we have an engaged candidate. They're actively looking, they're applying for jobs, they're going for interviews, they're researching, and they're getting an idea on what their salary expectation might be. And lastly, we have a committed candidate, which is the goal. So a committed candidate who has worked through the pros and cons of leaving their current job. They've addressed salary expectations. They know what is suitable for the type of job that they want. They're taking your calls, they are taking your advice, they're giving feedback, they're going to interviews, and you can hear the excitement in their voice and they are ready to go. So these are the types of candidates that we want to be working with. Okay, so how do we get the committed candidates? Don't just read their resume or interview them and onboard them within your agency without finding out more about their ideal job parameters. Even if they're a fantastic nanny and you love them and you can tell that they obviously meet all of your criteria and they kind of breeze straight through your recruitment process, you still need to find out exactly what will influence them in accepting a job with you. Because until a candidate accepts a job with you and creates revenue for your business, you know, they're not making that and creating that opportunity for you. So asking at interview, are you ready to move, also sets the tone that they need to be kind of in it to win it. You need to know what is influencing them in their job search. So is it money? Is it being looked after by a family employer? Is it travel? Do they have unrealistic expectations? Some common things that we hear from nannies about job hunting that are important for us to take note of and ask more questions about. I have actually put a list together, and this is a list that I thought about from kind of common things that we hear from nannies here in our market. When they are looking for a new job, a lot of the time it's about money. So find out exactly what this means to them. Are their expectations regarding salary realistic? Sometimes it's a change in profession. So for example, here in Australia, we have a lot of nannies that transition from working in mainstream childcare, so a childcare centre, we always need to make sure, do they really know what they're getting into? Do they understand the differences of working in a centre to working as a nanny? Sure, they love children, but are they realistic about this change and what it means? Sometimes we hear from candidates who want to work closer to home. Again, are they realistic? Are they looking for a job that won't even be in their area? Are they looking for something that's just not there? Don't want to work for parents who work from home. This is a big one. Ask them why. I personally think it's a bit of a red flag. Tell them it's 2024 and work from home parents are common. Problems with current jobs. Find out exactly what they dislike about their current job. Is this another red flag to explore? So these are all common motivators we hear about why nannies want to move jobs. So Greg talks a little bit about candidate care ethos and what to ensure that you are doing with every candidate that you do engage with. I don't think I'm generalizing by saying that we're all pretty caring and compassionate people in this industry, and we want the best outcomes for people, including our candidates. I do think that we have to fight a lot as agencies to kind of instill that we do care about our candidates as much as our clients, as I think we all know there seems to be sometimes a stereotype out there that we don't. So Greg talks about having a candidate care ethos, and he uses the example that in recruitment, it's like inviting 100 people to your house for a party and then leaving 95 of them outside in the rain, mainly because in our industry, we turn away more people than we hire. Therefore, we're kind of in the business of disappointment. An exercise that he does lay out is assessing your current processes and whether you do all of the below. These may seem pretty basic, it's not rocket science, but if you are doing all of these consistently with all of your candidates, you are then becoming known for doing those things, and you are then strengthening your brand and your credibility. Firstly, respond. That's a really common criticism in our profession. Recruiters don't get back to people. They only care about the people that they want to move forward with. So respond to everyone, whether that's an auto reply. If you can't speak to all of the candidates that apply with your agency, make sure that they get some sort of touch base from you. Don't keep people waiting, manage expectations, return phone calls, tell people the bad news, don't just give them the good news. So if you do have feedback for them, tell them. Greg talks about shutting up and listening a little, let the other person talk and share with you. You never know what you'll find out. Give a little, give thanks, advice, encouragement, respect, and empathy to the candidate. He talks about when giving feedback, keeping it CCCCF, constant, continuous, courteous candidate feedback. So the book talks about different ways to kind of hone your processes from candidate preparation before interview, throughout the whole process, all the way to delivering the offer and negotiating the deal. I am going to focus on just one of those parts today and give you a few kind of tips, and that's on the back end of the process, and something that I think as agencies we probably struggle with a little more. And I do see on the Facebook pages, etc., that it's often where we become a little let down and when things get a little unstuck. So delivering the offer, don't slip at the final step. This is where we seal the deal, we get paid. So we don't want things to fall apart at this end. The golden rule that Greg talks about is don't make a job offer to a nanny unless you already know it will be accepted by them. So you shouldn't be testing the waters at this stage anyway. All of the work knowing that the job is right for them, coaching them, and finding more about their MTA and CTM should have been done already. If you get an offer from a client, clarify every detail of that offer with the client. So we ask for it in writing. Do not go into the offer conversation with the nanny without being able to answer every question about the role that you're presenting to them. So salary, bonuses, package, work from home arrangements, etc. Predict what the nanny is going to ask you and be prepared with answers. So if there's information you have about the candidate, more about their motivators, and what you know about the candidate as to why they would be committed to a job, make sure that the information you're presenting them with fits all of those. And if it doesn't, be prepared to have an answer for them. If the salary is lower than the nanny is expecting and you have already advised the family of that, don't offer that offer to the candidate. Negotiate with the family first. The deal can really blow up if you do it the other way around. Work with the client first to construct an offer that you know the nanny will accept. Again, you're the expert. You know what's fair. You also know the candidate. Do not offer a job to a nanny over email. Make sure it's on the phone. Start the call with, has anything changed since we last spoke? That gives them an opportunity to reiterate to you again why this role is suitable to them. And listen for any kind of hesitation or doubt that they may present. If they do have concerns, resolve them before you go in with the offer. Then go in with the offer and get a verbal acceptance. Put a tentative timeline in place for the start date and agree on the next steps, so contract signing, etc. If there is a resignation that needs to take place in their current role, offer them your support in this process as well. Help coach them through this process. Again, use this conversation as an opportunity to reiterate to them why the job meets their MTA considerations, to help build confidence and excitement in them as well. And make sure you're celebrating the decision and the offer with them. You know, it's a really big deal to accept a new job, just as at this end of the deal, we as recruiters would be excited because we're about to make a placement. Never forget the opportunity and the commitment that you are asking for from the candidate. So, moving on from candidates to clients a little bit, we are going to be talking about building trust. And I did mention earlier that book, The Trust Edge, which talks about building trust, particularly relevant in our industry because what we're doing is selling trust to people. A concept in the book relates to 3 golden qualifying questions, and I have adapted these questions to Nanny. And the purpose of these questions is to find out how committed the clients are. So just like we wanted to do with the candidates, we need to be doing the same with the clients. So we want to know what type of client we have in our hand. 3 ways to do this is ask these 3 questions. How long has this role been open for? It allows you to kind of find out how desperate they are, therefore how likely they are to proceed. Are they going to bite at candidates as soon as you present them? Their nanny could have just resigned that day, or they may have been looking for months. If so, explore that more. It could be a red flag. Are they not offering enough money? Do they have crazy expectations of what a nanny's role is? It could be an educative moment for you when speaking with that client. And again, that's you asserting your position as the expert here. The second question is, what have you done so far to fill the position? This tells you if they are working with other agencies, have they used online platforms already, have they tried themselves on Facebook, etc. It also tells you if they value you as a service. So did they come right to you as their first choice because they value what a nanny agency offers, or are you their last resort? And perhaps they can't or don't want to be able to afford you. So that qualifying question I find really important. And the third question is a kind of hypothetical question for them, putting it back on them. Something like, just so I can understand your timeline, if I was to find you a nanny candidate that met all of your criteria in 3 days, would you be ready to present an offer to them? This allows you, again, to tell you how serious they are. Are they just shopping around right now? Are they interviewing others currently? Often you hear, if you ask them that, often they'll say, oh no, we're just shopping around right now. No, we actually don't need a nanny to start for a few months. oh, no, we don't want to secure someone that fast. We haven't even told the nanny that we have at the moment that we want to get rid of her. So again, all of these questions provide the information that you need to then know how fillable the job you have in front of you is, and allows you to being able to triage the job. So talking about job triaging, not all jobs are created equal. They have different values attached to them, and they have different, what I like to call, fillability. So we ourselves have quite a few different services and service streams within our business in terms of the types of clients that we service. So a few years ago, I came up with a value chart within our business that compared the ease of the job placement versus the client's monetary value, basically measuring the input and output of the type of client. And we know this to be true, right? Some jobs are more fillable than others. So for example, we all know that often part-time jobs are harder to fill than full-time jobs, yet we make less money on part-time jobs. We know that perhaps high-profile families, or families where you're liaising with a third party, like a personal assistant on behalf of the family, you might be making a lot of money from those jobs because it's a big salary and a full-time job, but at what cost? What challenges are within that role for you as a recruiter during that period? Another common one is short hour roles. Or what about the family who's working with multiple agencies? You might do all of the work for them, but someone else presents them a candidate that they want to hire sooner than you do. So you must triage your roles based on their fillability, assessing roles over others as more likely to be filled. In that same regard, sure, you want to treat everyone equally. Each job deserves your time and commitment. You run a business after all. The idea is to fill all of the jobs. But being aware of which jobs to prioritize when you have to is not only important, but necessary. These jobs can change in their value and fillability as well. So being really familiar with what makes a job fillable and what doesn't is important. So for example, someone might escalate their time frame, or they might drop a ridiculous requirement that they previously had in their job description. They might increase the salary, making it more attractive to one of your candidates. So it's not about just grabbing the low-hanging fruit jobs either, but having the skills to assess what jobs you or your team have the ability to fill and fill right now. So you won't fill every job that comes in. That's just the nature of what happens. And it's not always on us. It's often the other way around. For example, a client moves on. But if you are consistently monitoring and evaluating the fillability and focusing on these prioritized jobs, you will have a better fill rate. So some factors you might consider in assessing a family's job as fillable. Firstly, is the employer attractive? Have they employed nannies before? Do you have references from previous nannies that have worked with them? Do you know them to be a good and reliable employer of nannies? Secondly, is the job real and urgent? The client needs and wants to hire. They will move quickly. They will be engaged in your process. The hiring criteria of the family is reasonable. This means that their preferences are realistic, their expectations on the market and what a nanny does are informed. The client is committed to hiring. So we spoke about previously that for candidates, you need to know that you've asked the client the right questions and confirm that they do want to hire and that they do want to move on this process. The next one is your available talent pool. So if you already know that you have candidates within your network who would be potentially suitable for this job, and we all have that when a client calls in and they present a job to you on the phone, and in the back of your mind, you already have a few candidates that you can think of that you would like to approach about this job. Top of the list already. So another one is a repeat client. I mean, they obviously like you, they want to work with you, they've had success with you previously. That's great. You know that they're more likely to convert to another placement for you. And lastly, is the job attractive? Good hours, good wage, good entitlements. So they're just some of the ways that we can triage our jobs. So one of my final points today links back to one of the main themes, which is reducing the amount of work that we are doing that we're not getting paid for. So it would be remiss of me to not mention client time wasters, which I know we all have. If you have an inkling that a client is not in sync with you, or that they're not engaged with you as an agency and what you offer, not only will you reprioritize their job on your list and re-triage them, but you need to get to the bottom of why they're not engaged, or simply just get rid of them. So some signs that a client or job might not be as fillable as you think, and I know pretty much all of you will have had experience with some, if not all, of the below examples. A client that won't meet or speak with you on the phone. The information that they give you about their job role or position is vague and not detailed. They are working with other agencies. They don't return your calls. They reschedule candidate interviews. They won't give you reasons as to why they are rejecting your candidates. My favorite one, they demand urgency from you, but when it comes from you getting an answer from them, they are slow to get back to you or simply don't answer at all. They arrange second interviews or trials directly with the candidates, or worse, offer them the job outside of the agency. They ignore advice that you have offered around salary expectations. They dispute your fee after the work has been done and the deal is closed, or they take forever to pay your invoice. So basically what I'm saying is that if you have a client right now who is doing, I would probably say 5, look, some of these are forgivable, some of these have reasons behind them. It's just about making sure you get to that reason with them and find out why they're not kind of responding in the way that you need them to engage with your business. But if you have a client right now who is doing 5 or more of the above things, do an exercise, go through a list and see if they don't come to the party, just get rid of them. It's okay to fire clients. And we're here, as I said, to make money. You're not going to make money on these types of clients. Clients that are consistently doing this and have this type of behavior, they're not going to convert to revenue for you. So that's one of my final points for you today. So just some other final thoughts to leave you with today. Something that was an overarching theme in Greg's book is that reputation is everything. Something that you hear often, but actually thinking about it in practice every day is a little different. He talked about making sure that every contact you have with a family, nanny, well, he didn't, but this is how I've adapted it. Every contact you have with a family, a nanny, colleagues is a moment for you and your business. It's not only about the nannies and families that we do help, but also those that we don't help as well. So treat people with respect, do what you say that you're going to do, and let your reputation speak for itself. Strengthen your business by being true to yourself, assertive about your policies and not afraid to be assertive about them. Trust your own opinion and be open-minded about change. And finally, just remember, it's all about confidence, baby. And that is all from me today. I have really enjoyed sharing with you. I would love to hear from any of you. I know there's an opportunity for a few questions today. If there's anything that you think of later on, you're welcome to email me. I'd love to hear from you all. If you read the book, please reach out to me and let me know. Or if you want to learn any more about the concepts that I've spoken about today, or any of the ways that we've implemented them with our agency, I would love to connect with you. Thanks.
That was amazing. We have so many questions coming in. So I'm just going to cut to it to see if we can start rolling through these as quickly as we can. Just want to remind everyone, though, if we don't get your question answered, we are having a town hall at around the same time tomorrow. And so a lot of our speakers will be there and you can ask additional questions or get clarifying information at that time. So we're going to start off with, do you find that ads are useful in this industry?
Absolutely. I think that ads are at the core of what we do. So we're all in the recruitment industry. We all need to be advertising consistently. So whether that's for a specific job posting or whether that's just for general nannies into your candidate network, I think it's really important. And I think it's really important as well to just have an online presence in the online job market. So in Australia, we use Indeed, Seek. There are a few other platforms as well. I think consistently showing up on those platforms is really important so that people can kind of recognize your brand and know that you consistently have jobs to offer them.
Fantastic. What percentage of the budget do you recommend be put towards recruitment?
That one's really hard. Instead of giving you a specific answer in terms of percentage, I would probably, my best advice is to just make sure that whatever money you're putting towards advertising, you're making sure that you're measuring your return. So your return on investment, making sure that, you're measuring how many people convert, how many people then convert to placement, how long that process takes, the quality of the candidates that you're getting from a particular place that you're advertising. Measuring is the most important thing to do.
Absolutely. Another one that came in are, what are some innovative ways to streamline the candidate screening process while maintaining quality and efficiency?
I would say having your screening process in different parts. So we have a pre-screen phone call, then obviously an online portion where they have to complete the application form. And then obviously the in-person or virtual interview. So breaking it up so that you have different forms of communication with them, but also never forgetting that as much as we want to streamline this part of the process and make it as efficient as possible, it's also at the core of what we do and the most important thing. So you can't really cut corners at that end of the process. So it's what we do. So if you're looking at cutting corners, you probably want to look at in other steps in the process where you can do that.
Yeah, I co-sign. I approve this message. What have been the most successful ways that you have marketed your business to recruit quality nannies?
I would say it sounds pretty basic, and you can throw money at all sorts of advertising to attract clients and nannies, but the things that we have found have had the most success for us are having a really trustworthy brand, a trustworthy website. So it needs to look good, but also have informative content on there. Don't be vague. Google reviews, be consistent about the message that you're sending out to people, and be kind as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we're working with people. So remembering that if you build a rapport with someone, they're more likely to refer more people to you.
I love that. Do you find landing pages and marketing funnels to be an effective marketing strategy for clients and caregivers?
I would say probably more so at the height of kind of Facebook ads, and when it was more of a newer concept, I would say we had more success with those sorts of tactics. These days, probably less so. If there is some sort of sales funnel that you have, make sure there's a call to action on there. That's my number one tip.
Wonderful. How do you ask the nitty-gritty details about what the role really is? Some families don't disclose the specialized care needed for their kids, or if it involves heavy housekeeping.
Yes, so I would make sure that all the questions on your family application form are very specific, that they provide prompts for families as well. You can also provide examples to families underneath your questions to let them know the type of information that you're looking at getting from them. We also have a family onboarding consultation after we receive the application, which I know a lot of you do as well, making sure that if there are any red flags in their application form, that you're circling back to them and using it. For example, if you've noticed that they have put a lot of information there about housekeeping or cleaning, that you're then using that as an opportunity to educate them and just let them know what the expectation is of a nanny and reiterating the proper roles and duties.
I love that. Have you considered, or have you in the past signed up for the author's online training platform? And if so, what was your experience like?
I have not. I did see that question come through. That might be something that I have to look into.
I love that. I have another question for you. Let's pull it up here. How do you suggest reducing the tentative language when speaking with clients? So what sort of things can you do to reduce this when you're speaking with clients or when you're communicating with them in a written capacity?
I would say, firstly, just sit down and go through all of your sales pitches and phone scripts. You can even do things like audio record yourself doing calls with clients and then listen to them afterwards and take note of the language that you use. Something else that I would say is that not everyone on your team has to sell the same way. So some people feel more comfortable with more assertive language, whilst others have a bit of a different style. So if you have multiple people on your team speaking to clients, I would sit down and make sure that everyone's scripts and pitches kind of all align in terms of the things that you need to convey to a client, but without having everyone have to say the exact same thing that might not feel natural to them. And then, as I said in the presentation, making sure you're removing all that tentative language or any opportunity for tentative language.
Absolutely. You talked about firing unprofitable clients. How do you actually go about doing that?
Okay. Well, firstly, I mean, I don't mean firing them straight up. Obviously, there's a process to that. And at the end of the day, we're all in business and we're all here to make money. So I suggest not doing this lightly, particularly if you're in kind of a challenging market or a challenging spot in your business at that time. Steps that I would take first would be to assess how many of those attributes that I mentioned or considerations that they're meeting in that list, and then assess how detrimental they are for you and your business. So are they serious non-negotiables, or are they things that can be fixed? Assessing whether I even feel good about placing a candidate in that role. So is there a general lack of respect from that person that you just might not be able to come back from? And having a conversation. And I know that's really tough to do, but the first step would be to talk to them on the phone, which is probably the best option. I know sometimes we want to send emails, and saying, hey, I've noticed that you haven't been very responsive to my contact. Is there a preferred method of contact that you have, or do you need me to put your search on hold? Mm-hmm. And as much as you don't want them to reply and say, yeah, I want you to put my search on hold, because that's a loss of business opportunity for you, it's better that you know that now, than still waste resources and time on it. So don't fire. So what I'm saying is, don't fire clients like willy-nilly. Just clarify with people about what your expectation is, set the tone from the start so that you're kind of reducing those types of people that you have in the first place.
Wonderful. If you wanted to implement the practice of triaging your placements, how would you begin that process?
I would sit down and write down all of the considerations and factors of a great client, like what a great client looks like and what a bad client looks like. I obviously use some examples in that presentation that I know are kind of common that we all see, but you might have some specific things to you that are really important that you like to see in clients. So maybe start with writing, creating a profile of your most ideal client ever. And someone, for example, someone who really needs a nanny because their current nanny is leaving, so you know they're motivated to engage with you. Money doesn't seem to be a restriction for them in terms of the market they're hiring in. They are offering a great job with good hours. They've had a nanny before, so they know the drill, and they've been referred by another client that loves you. So all of those things are a tick, tick, tick. So write down all of those different factors and create some sort of matrix or table. That way in the future, you can assess clients based on what your key considerations are. That's probably my best advice.
I think this has been great. Listen, kudos to you for this rapid fire Q&A that you just executed. Like, I am fully here in the way that you've done this. Like, thank you so much for making my job so much easier. This has been an amazing session. Just a reminder Reminder that if you have additional questions for Sianan, just join us tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be talking with so many of our speakers tomorrow at our town hall, and you can just kind of bookmark your additional questions to give to her at that time. We just want to thank each and every one of you for your time today. Thank you, Sianan, for sharing with us, and thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Here. Day one of our virtual conference was filled with enlightening sessions and valuable insights. We explored the theme of resilience with Chandra Riddick, learned strategies for navigating tricky situations with Harry Jones, enhanced our leadership skills with Lindsay, and gained a fresh perspective on recruitment from Sianan. I personally feel deeply inspired and motivated and ready to approach various aspects of my business with a new perspective. I encourage each of you to take time to reflect this evening on the discussions and let all of that knowledge just sink in. Don't forget to revisit your notes from today, and let's keep the conversation going on the Hoover app. Join us tomorrow as we reconvene at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another day of advancing excellence together. Take care.